We're going to start now showing you the whole of a chain, how you'll treat it from beginning to end. We're showing you the superficial back line. So we'll start with the tension line, that energetic connection. And we'll start at the feet and working the 5 toes, tracing those 5 toes. And up to the knee, over the knee, and thighs to the bottom of the pelvis. Plantar aspect, and moving from the pelvis and tracing up the spine, then over the back of the head, onto the dorsal aspect for forehead. So now Annie is going to talk you through working the chain itself. And for this superficial back line, all of the chains have a movement, a function, and this chain is about the extension and the hyperextension of the trunk, plus the flexing of the knees and the ankles. And interestingly, progressively, it lifts the baby's eyes to promote the standing stage. So very much superficial back line and spine. All of the chains have an emotional, a psychological relevance. And for this one, it's very much about the ability to be able to stand up for yourself, physically and metaphorically. So supporting both yourself and others, embracing the natural curves of your body and your life. And it's worth staying grounded, as you are no earthly good if you're too heavenly. So now Annie will show you the movements for these chains, moving from energetic line into working muscles and fascia.
Okay, so as you can see, I have been really warming up the muscles of this line on the heel aspect of the foot, starting with the feet, with the toes, working through the plantar fascia into the Achilles tendon and the gastrocnemius. Small circles with visualization and intention of warming these muscles up, warming and loosening these muscles. Working these muscles three-dimensionally, so moving from this heel aspect onto the lateral aspect. Again, working the feet, working those toes, underneath the feet, that plantar fascia, into the Achilles tendon, and through the gastrocnemius. We're using small warming circles, warming these muscles up. In this lateral aspect and medial aspect, we can also bring in warming that hamstring, the underlying hamstring group there as well. So warming in readiness for stretching. Warming those hamstrings and over the knee, the back of the knee, this chain follows through down to the foot, Achilles tendon, back of the knee, into those hamstrings, and to access those hamstrings on the dorsal aspect, where they will be underlying the quadricep group. So lots of lovely warming circles, effleurage movements in readiness to now stretch those leg muscles. So you might want to go from using a hand on each foot here to doing stretches with 2 hands together on one side, really stretching those muscles, both the length of the muscles and the width of the muscles. On all the way through that chain. And up. on each of the aspects, stretching these muscles out. So we've warmed them and now we're stretching them both through the width and the length of the muscle. Same on the other foot. And on this medium aspect, same from that foot through the root up the leg and the width of those muscles. Onto the dorsal aspect through that long hamstring group. And then again, that therapeutic stretching of all those muscles. This lateral aspect, which you probably won't be able to pick up so brilliantly on the film, but again through the length and the width of those muscles. So that's the leg part of the chain complete. We can now go on to the plantar aspect where we've got these hamstrings joining the bottom of the pelvis at this point and moving across the sacrotuberous ligament. So we're going to warm that whole ligament up. And again, entirely up to you whether you use one hand on one foot or do small circles together on one foot and then the other. Use the technique which feels most comfortable for you. We're moving into the erector spinae group. And again, really covering that area of those muscles, warming them up. We've got the deep spinal muscles. Into the neck. And then finally those neck muscles into that cranial fascia and over onto the frontalis at the forehead. Now they are all lovely and warmed up. We're going to give those muscles a really good stretch now. So again, you might want to use 2 hands to stretch. Across that sacrotuberous ligament and across those erector spinae muscles. Really visualizing and giving intention to those muscles and stretching. Those deep spinal muscles, that cranial fascia. And even stretching that frontalis muscle. Same onto the other side. Really stretching that sacrotuberous ligament. And those erector spinae muscles. And those deep spine muscles coming up into the cranial fascia, and over to the frontalis. Once you've used the effleurage, the circles, and the pectisars, which is that stretching of those muscles, we're then going to do some focus work onto any areas which you've found any imbalance whilst you've been working. Now, while I was working Sue's feet, I was very aware of a tension on her left-hand side in this erector spinae coming out towards the scapula. So I'm going to do a little bit of focused work there. I'm going to go in a little bit deeper because having spoken with Sue earlier, she does like deep touch and I'm quite happy to give deep touch. So I'm going to use a knuckling into that area. And again, this is like a trigger point in a full body massage. You're using a deep touch to get in there. However, according to your client or your way of working, equally effective may be a very light touch on an imbalanced area where you hold and you're making that energetic release on that muscle. Some of you may even want to come right off and just use aura holding. It's giving off a lovely energy there and a little twitch there from Sue. Okay.
And as you say, both, or the three techniques, very effective.
So any other areas where you may have found a little imbalance? And again, on the left side for Sue, I'm picking up in this muscle at the back of the cervical area there, a little bit there. So I'm going to just do a little tight hooking technique on that, which is creating a lovely popping, lovely release. And again, either or both. I'm going to hold over that. So we've traced through the energetic connection of the line. We've worked those muscles within the line, warming them up, stretching them, and then working any areas in balance. We're now going to restore calm to the whole of the chain by using some very gentle stroking. I'm starting on the lateral aspect, stroking on the medial aspect from the feet to the knees to the pelvis, just covering that heel area, onto the dorsal hamstring area, up through that sacral tuberous ligament, into that broad erector spinae group, and those small, deep spinal muscles into the cranial fascia and over to the frontalis with a gentle waterfall technique, just restoring calm back into that whole line. And then completing that energetic connection of the line in the new restored normal, working the line, the 5 toes, up to the knee, through the hamstrings to the back of the pelvis, pelvis to the spine, through to the neck, into the the cranial fascia, and to the frontalis. And that is this SBL line.